Fred and Sheila McCoy, Hatfield McCoy Museum, Liberty, Kentucky, fredmccoy.com. Going to read you something again. Sheila will show you that board there, and then we're going to go over it.
Okay.
This gentleman writes, the Aunt Betty of the feud stories was not the wife of Uriah McCoy. Aunt Betty of the feud stories was clearly the wife of Alan McCoy. Randall McCoy had not had any real connection with Uriah McCoy since he testified against Uriah and his wife, Betty, in a lawsuit that Uriah settled out of court for the price of $20,000, which he paid in cash. Let's stop right there for just a minute. Let me explain something. Have you never heard these people here? And this comes from one particular. This comes from Tom Dotson. Tom Dotson's the one that says that it's a different Betty McCoy. You know, I asked Tom one time. I said, "What are you, adopted? You don't know who your great grandmother was?" Because Tom would have been the great grandson of Aunt Betty and Uriah. That would have been his great grandparents. Myself and Tom Dotson are cousins.
Yep.
His mother, Merle, and my father, Bobby, were brother and sisters. And Tom and I used to love that guy. Thought there was nothing like him. Got educated in life, but I won't go there. But this is not about family. This is about the truth. And this is about the stories that he's telling. But Tom says, you know, all through, he's always talked about how poor Randall McCoy was. Altina Waller talks about how poor and how jealous Randall McCoy was of Devil Anse, and he was so poor and he wasn't as prosperous and all. But now he's telling you right here, or at least this person is, and I assume that this story came from, or partly from Tom, because he's the first one to ever start this Aunt Betty stuff. But it says here that Uriah and his wife settled a lawsuit out of court for the price of $20,000, which he paid in cash. He's saying Randall McCoy paid $20,000 in cash to Uriah McCoy on a lawsuit. Boys, I've been on the phone for a week, 2 weeks with a guy, and I don't want to know about all these lawsuits out here of nothing. I want to know about lawsuits specifically to Devil Anse Hatfield, Randall McCoy, Perry Klein, people like that. This man's saying that Uriah McCoy, my great-great-grandfather, Uriah was my great-great-grandfather. He served in the 45th with Randall McCoy.
Right.
He was Randall McCoy's first cousin.
Yeah.
And his brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Like Ellison, Cap, so many of the West Virginia Hatfields that married their first cousins. So did Randall McCoy. He married Sarah, his first cousin. And this guy, one book, one place he puts didn't have a pot to pee in or a window to throw it out of. Well, I don't know if he put that in a book. That's my words. But that's basically what they say. Randall McCoy was poor and jealous. But he says here that he settled a lawsuit with Uriah McCoy and paid him $20,000 in cash. Where the hell Randall McCoy get $20,000 at? Either he was poor as Job's turkey, or this is a lie. Which one is it? You can't have it both ways. We'll hold your feet to the fire. He was either poor as Job's turkey,
Yep.
or he worked for a living. He raised, he farmed, he done all kinds of things. Where's the court case? Guys, we just went over and showed you a record over there of a warrant that the West Virginia governor had signed for Randall McCoy and Lark and all of them, trying to prove our point, trying to prove things wrong. This is wrote in the history. This is wrote in the history on a Facebook page, and people believe it. When you put that he settled out of court or that he paid $20,000, where's some kind of documentation? It says he filed suit. Betty testified against Uriah and his wife Betty in a lawsuit that Uriah settled out of court for the price of $20,000, which he paid in cash. He goes on to say, Alan McCoy, another of Sally's brothers, died in the mid-1870s, and this Aunt Betty lived alone in the river by Stringtown. The records seem to indicate that she ran a house of ill repute, and she kept being hauled into court for selling illegal alcohol and creating disturbance, a breach of peace. Every time Aunt Betty would get thrown into jail, Randall would go bail her out. That's the Aunt Betty that Rosanna went to live with after her birth. Well, guys, we're going to show you 3 or 4 different things here. We're going to take our time, and no, that's okay. I was just looking at the thing, but this is the house that was moved across out of the flood area up onto the hill that's got the cabin in it. That's Aunt Betty. That's her. There used to be a footstone at the foot of her grave that said Aunt Betty for years and years and years, back in the 60s, 70s. Well, there it is. There's a picture of it before they stole it. That rock used to be, and it said Aunt Betty, and that was the foot at the foot of her grave. That rock's no longer there.
It's that now.
That rock's no longer there. They have taken Aunt Betty off that after Mr. Dotson started saying that this was the wrong Aunt Betty. Now, here's Aunt Betty. Alan and Betty McCoy. In 1870 census, Alan and Betty lived at the mouth of Pond Creek. Now, guys, this is you a document. I hadn't even thought about this one, but there's you a document. Stop your TV and read it. I'm not going to go over it. But, you know, this story right here just now said that Alan and Betty lived in Stringtown, along by the river in Stringtown. Alan and Betty. He's talking about, there was 2, Alan McCoy and Uriah McCoy, brothers, married 2 Elizabeths.
Right.
Uriah McCoy married Elizabeth Rutherford. And Alan, his brother, married Elizabeth Blankenship. Elizabeth Blankenship was known as Alan's Betty. That's how they distinguished them. Alan's Betty. Elizabeth Rutherford, Uriah's Elizabeth, my great-great-grandmother, was known as Aunt Betty. She was known as Aunt Betty to everybody. Everybody. Her grandchildren called her, I wasn't there then, I'm a great-great-grandchild. But even her grandchildren called her Aunt Betty. They didn't call her Nana. They didn't call her Mama, Mammy, or whatever. Some of these people, you know, people calls grandparents different things.
Yeah.
She was Aunt Betty to everybody. This lady down here was Alan's Betty. You know, Alan died in 1870. He died early. Don't know what he died from. Of course, they didn't have death certificates back then. And but he died early. He died at the age of 57.
Wow.
July of 1879, it says, just a few months after the famous pig trial. Now, I don't want this story to be lengthy. We've done a video on Aunt Betty before. We've done a video on the house being moved. We've done, let me show you something here, and then I'm going to walk you over there. Look at that. Betty Elizabeth Rutherford McCoy. There's our motorcycle we're working on. There's the McCoy gun. There's the Hatfield McCoy gun belt. This is what some of the wrap's going to look like. There's the Hatfield rifle. Moonshine steel. But anyway, that's not part of the story right now. That's just a teaser. That's just our OCC chopper that we're theming out for the Hatfield McCoy. Elizabeth Rutherford McCoy. Aunt Betty. Let's look at this nameplate here. That's our granddaughter, Emily, right there.
Yeah.
One of our granddaughters. And she's sitting,
That's one of my favorite pictures of her.
That's Sheila's, one of her favorites. She's sitting on top of the hill there, above Uriah and Aunt Betty's house at Sarah Elizabeth's grave, the little girl of Johnsy and Rosanna. Look at the name on the tombstone. Sarah, after her mother. Elizabeth, after Aunt Betty. Because she went to live with Aunt Betty and Uriah after her dad kicked her out when she was pregnant. And there's the house that she went to live in. That house is at Stringtown. That house is, I'm gonna pause it on some of this, so it's probably some of the same stuff that I'm reading now, or not reading, but telling you now. I haven't read this in a while, but you can stop, you can read all about, this is one of the boards that we have in the museum, and that McCoy Cemetery sign used to be there. Of course, anything with Hatfield or McCoy back home, it has a hard time staying.
Yeah.
And somebody has now stole that. The last time we was up there, we done a video, and we didn't notice until you was filming, did we?
Yeah, we was like, where's the sign?
And that's my great-great-grandfather. That's Uriah McCoy. And Aunt Betty was my great-great-grandmother.
That's where the house is being moved from one side of the street to the other.
Exactly. And there's the cabin that's on the inside.
Yep.
So guys, when you see stories like this that says that it was another Betty, that they lived at Stringtown, well, I'm here to tell you, right there's the 1870 census, and Allen and Betty lived at the mouth of Pond Creek. 9 years later, Allen died, murdered in 1879, which was approximately 1 year after the famous hog trial. You can read it. I'm not going to harp on this story. It's just another fabricated story, another lies and damn lies, or whatever it is. And Tom Dodson, and why he would want to mislead people and guide them in a different direction. Nobody ever in history, until Tom Dodson wrote a book rescuing history.
Yeah.
After Kevin Costner, and it's just I don't know. Well, I have a good idea, but I won't go there. I'm seeing this back there, and I won't go there. So I don't know what the deal is, but you guys look at the evidence. You can read the books, and you can go look at the evidence,
research it,
and you can make up your own mind. Sure. If like I said, I told him one time, my dad and us, when I was a boy, we'd go up here to Uriah and Aunt Betty's house up Stringtown. We would see if we got a picture. Here's your holler. Here's your Stringtown. That's lower Stringtown. Here's Uriah's house.
Yeah.
This is the 292 that comes up from Aflax. This, if you keep going in that direction, you go to West Virginia, go back that way, and you go back toward Belfry. This lower Stringtown road here, this road, this is where Jimmy Wolford grew up at. This is where James McCoy home place is.
And the baby. Up
here in the holler. Up here's where the baby's buried on the hill. And over here on this other side is where Uriah and Aunt Betty's buried.
Right.
But right up above that house is a coal company. Used to be some mining roads around through there. And when I was a kid, Dad, we road hunted. We'd turn our dogs loose and hunt up and down these roads, and we'd drive around the Jeep and follow them till they hit the track, and we'd get out the Jeep and go get the coon out of the tree.
See what they got.
We hunted all over Aunt Betty and Uriah's property. All over. The cemetery. We've hunted the cemetery. Coons all over the place up there. I grew up there. We lived there. Tom Dodson don't know who his great-grandmother is. Now, go figure that. He doesn't know who his great-great-grandmother was. In his book, when he first wrote the book, he had Asa McCoy at Blackberry City as our great-grandfather. That's not the Asa McCoy that was our great-grandfather. Asa McCoy that was our great-grandfather was married to Preacher Ann Hatfield's daughter, Nancy. The Asa McCoy that he was talking about, that he was trying to say was that our great-grandfather was Asa McCoy, Uriah and Sally's brother, Selkirk's father. He actually lived on Blackberry City side. But it's like Ron McCoy trying to tell you the history of his family when he didn't even know he was a member of it. I won't go into I've got another thing there, but I won't go into it. Guys, thanks for joining us. I know Sheila's doing that to me.
Good job.
I'll try to stay on a high road if
right.
there is such a thing. But I'm telling you, it's so sad, and maybe someday I'll enlighten everybody and tell them. But Other than that, Fred and Sheila McCoy, Hatfield McCoy Museum. Catch you later.
Please like, subscribe, and share. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.